Adventure is out there. Who can participate? What is it? Is it ethical? Watch to find out how you, as a therapeutic recreation practitioner, can improve the lives of others through adventure. Though interest has increased over the past 20 years, there is still little known about adventure therapy and its benefits. Also known as therapeutic outfitting, wilderness therapy, or adventure-based counseling, adventure therapy refers to therapeutic interventions that utilize experiential and risk-taking activities that are both physically and emotionally challenging and usually take place in an outdoor setting. Adventure therapy has a long-standing global history of therapeutic benefits, but has shown up more commonly in North American practice and research over the past 20 years. It's important to note that therapeutic benefits began to be identified in the early 1900s, leading to practices of camping therapy for psychiatric treatment and outdoor recreation, proving to be beneficial for at-risk youth. These stepping stones legitimize the development and expansion of adventure therapy education, space development, and program development across the country. This understanding is just the start of what has grown into a continually expanding field of study and practice. We're going to briefly go over the concepts that make up adventure therapy and how it achieves its intended outcomes.
Adventure therapy uses a solution-focused approach. In any therapeutic intervention, we know that the process is important to derive meaning from the program and reflect on its benefits. Adventure therapy is no exception, but it also uses a philosophical shift in its approach. Adventure therapy focuses on solutions rather than problems. This means that right from the beginning, it uses clients' strengths and resources to construct solutions rather than eliminating problems. This may sound like the same thing, since typically eliminating problems ultimately means finding a solution. In reality, efforts focused on finding solutions are very different from those designed to solve problems. The problem is not necessarily ignored, but the facilitator places it in a present, manageable perspective by using resources the clients have to offer. This requires the facilitator to front-load, a process that prompts clients to seek positive behaviors instead of avoiding negative ones.
Within adventure therapy, the therapist is required to shift from the role of the expert to an integral member of the group and work with the participants through the experience, creating an interesting shift in power dynamics. The power of the recreation therapist over clients is often problematic in therapeutic recreation, but adventure therapy breaks down this power imbalance and creates a common experience for all participants. The experience creates the change, freeing the therapist to take on a more mobile role while working with the group towards solutions. Adventure therapy uses reality-based outcomes as well as the use of perceived risk and a high level of stress, also known as eustress, to achieve its outcomes. The client is encouraged to view the action engaged in as representative of challenges that they experience in another aspect of their life. Debriefing is done in a manner that emphasizes connections between the experience of the activity and the real-life situation throughout the duration of the activity.
So what does this all mean? What is so unique about adventure therapy? And what does it do for those who participate in it?
There are a lot of benefits to adventure therapy, but they depend on the targeted population. In one study on adolescents, participants in a 10-week adventure therapy program had lasting and significant improvements in psychological resistance, self-esteem in peer groups, and emotional and behavioral functioning. Adventure therapy helps promote a sense of responsibility, improvements in cooperating with others, encouraging openness and emotional discovery, and creating meaningful opportunities to face real-life experiences and challenges. Above all, adventure therapy is known for one key thing: promoting resilience. It uses a healthy amount of stress to create an environment that participants need to overcome challenges that ultimately lead to a greater sense of accomplishment.
Adventure therapy has been used to engage many different populations. Yet many populations are left out of the discussion due to limiting preconceived ideas about who are appropriate clients for adventure therapy. One population that is well represented in adventure therapy is adolescents. Adolescents participating in adventure therapy showed positive changes regarding their depressive symptoms, substance abuse and dependence, self-awareness, self-esteem, interpersonal skills, and internal locus of control. Youth are often assumed to be agile, physically in shape, and have an appreciation of risk and leisure. There are many programs that allow young people in the juvenile justice sector and the youth mental health sector the opportunity to engage in adventure therapy. A common critique of adventure therapy is that it's rooted in the patriarchal system. Much of the current research and opportunity for adventure therapy is focused on a male client base. Research suggests adventure therapy is effective for allowing male clients to work through challenging experiences while simultaneously creating opportunities for bonding and expressing vulnerabilities. These therapeutic benefits that are supported by research set the stage for a wide range of opportunity for male participants that is not mirrored in the female demographic. Other populations, such as older adults, people with a disability or physical illness, are often not considered appropriate to engage in adventure therapy. These bias restrictions limit the potential and therapeutic opportunity of adventure therapy for a diverse client base.
A major component within adventure therapy is risk, whether it is perceived or actual. It is the heightening of participants' views of risk that facilitates change. The risk in adventure therapy is vital, therefore we can't extinguish it. We must use it to our advantage as recreational therapists to benefit the people we are working with. There are two types of risk that we must distinguish between in adventure therapy: actuarial risk and perceived risk. Actuarial risk is the likelihood that an event will recur and the consequences of that event. For example, when rock climbing, the risk of falling and what impact that would have on your mind and body. Perceived risk is the individual's subjective perception of that risk. For TRs, it's important to assess both of these risks in adventure programming. Perceived risk varies for every individual. Therefore, it is imperative to understand each client's perceived risk. Although the actuarial risk of hiking on a maintained trail is low, a client struggling with anxiety or trauma-related experiences may perceive this as highly risky. The outdoors has the potential to promote well-being, a place to test physical and mental stamina, and benefit others. It might also still be considered risky. The anxiety associated with risky leisure can be a catalyst for change in action, where for others the risk could debilitate a person. In tying this back to the example of the client who is extremely afraid of hiking and what would happen if they fall, that particular activity might be detrimental for their well-being, rather than providing the client with an opportunity for mastery, exploration, and freedom. Taking this into consideration, it is essential for TRs to understand their clients' histories, wants, needs, and risks. We pay attention to both the individual and the activity's emotional safety, risk, and anxiety. The research suggests that the best scenario for growth and change is one where participants feel safe, secured, and cared about. Developing a therapeutic relationship is key in facilitating this. Luckily for TRs, the nature of our profession is developing a warm therapeutic relationship with our clients. As with any intervention, we can use this to our advantage. As leaders, we should take steps to reduce the perception of risk and ensure that the perceived risks are not too high for the clients, as this can be counterproductive and damaging. We can't stay away from adventure therapy based on the notion that it is risky, therefore unforeseeable or inappropriate as a TR intervention. Risk-taking within leisure provides a context for self-improvement, emotional engagement, and self-control. The benefits of adventure therapy take place when participants are in their peak adventure, where the perceived competence and risk is equal. We have to be careful not to stray into misadventure, where the risk is higher than one's competence, as this can negatively impact our clients. In continuing with the wilderness setting, research in adventure therapies have shown that for many individuals it is not risky. Participants form relationships with their facilitators, others, and most importantly, themselves. The level of risk can vary with each activity chosen in adventure therapy. From ziplining to indoor skydiving to hiking, risk varies. Risk cannot be seen as a negative. It must be looked at as an opportunity. And that is why, within TR, adventure therapy is an opportunity for many clients to develop skills, connect with themselves, step outside their comfort zone, and educate themselves on leisure resources. Recreation therapists may not be able to control all the risks, but they can certainly control some and ensure that clients are engaging at a level of risk that they are comfortable with. When we build therapeutic relationships, we can attempt to assess the hidden perceived risks, understand our clients' histories, and foster risk-taking within a safe and controlled environment. Not all perceived risks should be eliminated. I cannot stress enough that adventure and risk as a therapeutic intervention can be a space that promotes well-being. But we have to be educated on this beneficial intervention and advocate for its use, helping those that are involved with decision-making not to think of it as a risk, but as a change for clients. There are, however, some ethical considerations in using adventure therapy that we will divulge in the next section.
As recreation therapists, it is challenging to determine which participants are appropriate to participate in adventure therapy. How do we determine who is eligible and who isn't? Researchers found that most groups participating in adventure therapy were adolescents who were at risk or involved in illegal activity, or adults facing mental health challenges. There is little research on older adults and seniors and how adventure therapy could be a benefit for them. Ageism, defined as making assumptions about someone based on their age, can often influence whether or not someone shall participate in a program. However, research has shown that successful aging requires the avoidance of disease and disability, the maintenance of physical and cognitive functions, and engagement in meaningful, productive activities. With all of this evidence, why are many failing to include older adults in meaningful adventure therapy? With the baby boomer population aging, it is important that this generation receive adventure and challenge. Adventure therapy for some could be going for a long walk on trails, or it could be skydiving. Maybe we shouldn't be looking at which participants are appropriate to take part in adventure therapy. Rather, we should look at which activities are appropriate for the participants. Ethical considerations also need to be made when working with adolescents, especially when it comes to consent and confidentiality. For example, parents may send their children for treatment, however their children may not want to participate. Although the parents are legally still responsible for their children, the youth may not be cooperative or willing to engage in treatment. They may start therapy with fear, anger, or resistance to authority. As recreation therapists, we need to ensure that participants are not being coerced into treatment, however still being in line with the POA's wishes. Additionally, confidentiality needs to be kept, but parents, other youth participants, and staff could all hear and experience the youth's treatment. All the risk and skill associated with adventure therapy means that a recreation therapist would likely not have the required knowledge and ability to safely do the activities on their own. Various training sessions are offered based on the activity and location, and recreation therapists could obtain skills through this, or they could work alongside a specialist in that line of work already. A recreation therapist could be there to support their client and get them connected with the adventure therapy specialist, but wouldn't be facilitating the actual activity. Professionals working with adventure activities should be in good personal fitness, they should be comfortable in natural environments, they should have knowledge about weather and the activity at hand, and they should be competent in risk assessment and emergency training. With adventure therapy could come problems with liability and boundaries. If someone were to get hurt during the activity, would the blame be placed on the recreation therapist since they were the facilitator? What if the client really wants to go skydiving, but the recreation therapist isn't sure it is the best idea for the client's health? It is challenging to know if the recreation therapist would have the right to say no to a client if the client demonstrated a desire to do an activity. We had the opportunity to talk with Tessa'a, Jennison, an avid adventurer and the founder of Waterloo Region Crossing, about her experience with liabilities, boundaries, and accessibility within the adventure field. Please direct your attention to the video of our interview.
Waterloo Region Crossing is an endurance events organization. We're not-for-profit, and we coordinate adventure events that raise awareness and funds to address local issues. I come from a background of adventure racing competitively, and so I have experience, enduring through adventure expeditions in places across North America. And I wanted to bring some of that excitement and that activity back into my home community. But one of the really important things for me was giving it a purpose and including as many people as possible. So we designed out an event series that has multiple different distance options and multiple sort of different difficulty levels to encourage people to participate, whether they're super familiar with being outdoors or it's a brand new thing for them. We have a winter event and we have a summer event. So the winter event is a non-competitive 65-kilometer trek. Now 65 kilometers is the longest distance. We also have a 10 and a 28-kilometer version of that trek. So that one is to raise awareness about the risks of winter exposure for homeless citizens, and we raise funds to help build more affordable housing in the community. And the summer event is a brand new event called Race Across Waterloo Region. So that is a multi-sport adventure race. Kind of looks like a native species scavenger hunt mashed up with a wilderness triathlon type of idea. And so we again have competitive as well as non-competitive options with 3 different distances. And that one is intended to generate a dialogue on the state of women's safety in our community, hopefully introduce more women and LGBTQ people to adventure sport and to raise funds for the Sexual Assault Support Center. We have people from all walks of life who come out, all different age ranges. Our youngest participant in our winter trek this year was 12 and the eldest was 72, so it's a pretty big spectrum. We have a really high proportion of women who come out and participate in our events, which is not very typical of endurance adventure sport. Typically you see a lot more men in these kinds of activities, so it's been really neat to see how that has taken shape. One thing I also want to point out is we had people from a range of economic backgrounds, and that to me is very significant because our event obviously is intended to generate awareness about the risks of exposure for homeless citizens, and so to be able to appeal to a broad range of economic backgrounds is really, really important. And so I try to, in any way that I can, enable participants to be involved if they want to by making arrangements for lending of equipment or just general accessibility. Because we have such a broad range of participants with a variety of different athletic capabilities and some who have pre-existing injuries and things like that, we have built out a really robust support structure to ensure that those participants feel secure in being able to embark on the journey, knowing that if something comes up, they will be supported and taken care of. Some of the challenges we have encountered are, because we have quite a number of more elderly participants, like I said, our eldest trekker this year was 72 years old. As people kind of pass 50, get into their 60s and 70s, arthritis is quite impacted by the cold. So in our winter events, people will stiffen up more quickly and maybe move a little bit slower. We have some participants who have respiratory complications like asthma, and once you go down below minus 12 degrees Celsius, that can trigger asthma attacks, things like that. So we try to be very mindful and proactive so that those participants can be cared for should they encounter something that impacts them or prevents them from being able to finish. We make sure we have a support crew that can handle those kinds of situations. And now for the summer event, we piloted that last year, and it is a fundraiser in support of the Sexual Assault Support Center. One of the things that we did not anticipate was that some of the crew who piloted that event have personal experience with sexual abuse or sexual trauma from their past. And so they didn't even predict how participating in that event and the purpose of that event would affect them emotionally as they were embarking through this journey. So one of the ways that we're addressing that for this coming event as we scale for public participation, because we're collaborating with the Sexual Assault Support Center, they're going to send out volunteers who are called heart monitors. They'll have a purple armband, and that will identify them as people who are trained to kind of talk people through when they're having an emotional response that is induced by sexual trauma or that's triggered through doing something to help address that issue that profoundly affects them because they have that personal experience. So adventure events by their very nature tend to appeal to people who are, physically in a condition where they can complete these kinds of things. So for people who struggle with chronic illness or various forms of physical impairment, certainly there are boundaries there because we're out often on more rugged terrain. So we do make an effort to offer opportunities for people to participate. If they have a desire to do so, we want them on our crew in some way, shape, or form. So we have a youth engagement program for kids to participate in the event by creating the artwork for our checkpoint badges that our participants collect as they make their way through the journey. I'd like to maybe expand that into seniors' residences as well and offer it to kind of the younger and then the more elderly spectrum of people in our community. But then, when we have citizens who want to be part of it but can't for physical reasons or for health reasons, there are so many different opportunities from volunteerism, being on the support crew in a different capacity. If somebody wants to be involved, we try to find a way for sure to involve them or to remove barriers to access. Well, I think especially related to events, it's really important to think outside the box and to be as inclusive as you can. So if someone has a desire to be involved, enabling that person to be involved in some capacity, in whatever capacity you can, is really, really important. Another point that I would make is to keep an open mind. So to ask for participant feedback, especially in areas that could be improved. Like, it's always nice to hear that someone really loved your event and thought it was awesome, but what I want to hear as a practitioner is, what did you not like and how can I make it better? So asking for that feedback and then taking it seriously and doing something with that information is really important as well. I think it's really important to encourage camaraderie amongst your participants to build that sense of community, because people seem to really, really thrive on the opportunity to help each other through difficult moments. And so camaraderie and that empathy and support should be encouraged and recognized when possible as well. I think it's also really important to provide motivational elements, something to keep people moving and getting to that next spot. And it helps build incremental goals along the way. So if you have participants who are in an event that is staged, giving them a reason to get to that next stage, whether it's collecting some sort of token along the way, whether it's encouraging them to put your favorite snack in your gear bin that you can access at that point, just something to help them get to that next point is really, really important. It's also really helpful to build that connection to the natural environment. So rather than just having participants travel through it, integrate something that helps them connect to the environment that they're experiencing and recognize that relationship that they have with it, to build that biophilic response and to recognize how that interaction with the natural environment affects, mood, affects the levels of energy that you have, the types of experiences that you're having, and just kind of builds that connection and that appreciation for nature.
After hearing all this, you may be wondering how you can incorporate adventure therapy into your practice. A challenge to practitioners in making adventure therapy an actual experience for clients is negotiating the ethics and liability surrounding the activity. This would often involve management improving the activity or ensuring that it is feasible regarding client safety, organization policy, and cost. If you believe adventure therapy can be a truly meaningful experience for clients, but are facing resistance from a multitude of directions, we need to continue advocating. We recommend proposing your idea with a thought-out plan. Consider some of these questions. What resources do you have in the community where adventure therapy can take place? How would you decide which clients are appropriate? How would you provide a safe environment, both physically and emotionally, to make not only the clients comfortable, but the organization comfortable with this form of intervention? Risk and adventure are good, but they do have their limits, as we've discussed within risky leisure. It is vital that you as a facilitator plan accordingly. We recommend developing a formal assessment to determine which clients are suited for adventure therapy through a relational understanding of the client story. The combination of research and access to assessments will hopefully contribute to a rise in the use of adventure therapy in TR programming. We encourage TRs to continue engaging critically and reflectively on the theories and principles both behind and within adventure programs. Are you incorporating them? How do these theories inform your planning? In what ways does adventure therapy fit within your greater TR philosophy? These questions are not meant to pose a great challenge to you, but rather direct a practice towards meaningful, thought-out experiences where problem-solving and spontaneous learning can occur, not only within an adventure setting, but in a broader practice as well. Thank you.